I used to answer journal prompts like a champ. Overachiever, grade A student, I wanted to get it right. But all the journaling in the world wasn't making anything happen. In fact, when I had that insight that I was performing, not connecting to myself, not creating healing or transformation that I was seeking, but simply staying stuck in that good student role, I knew there needed to be a different, more insightful way of showing up on the page. Hi, I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. I'm the founder of Mindful Patterns. Here at Mindful Patterns, we believe in the power of art as a tool for personal growth and self-discovery. And there's something magical about the combination of written and visual reflection that creates true and lasting change in our bodies. It becomes a whole body experience instead of a rumination without action. I have filled journal after journal after journal with words that didn't lead to action. I still do that, don't get me wrong. But I found that when I started looking for the questions beneath the questions, that something shifted, something changed, and I was able to spend less time in my journal, more time taking action, and to see true shifts in my own thinking, my own beliefs, and my own sense of identity. So, our company really focuses on working with women 55 plus who feel caught in that midlife and post midlife liminal space of who am I? What's my purpose? What's next? I just retired, or I became an empty nester, or I'm recently divorced or widowed, and I don't know who I am anymore. I cannot tell you how many women say this to me over and over again. And what I want to share with you today is an example of my creative reflection pages process. I introduced this in another video a couple of days ago. So if you haven't watched that one, it's all about why morning pages didn't work for me. You can get a lengthier description of the process. Today, I want to give you an experience. If I can talk, I want to give you an experience of that process. And as I was going through the prompts for myself, I feel pretty connected to who I am at this point. I just turned 61. I love my work. I'm a happy empty nester and caregiver for parents and young adult children, but the caregiving is lovely, not intense at this particular moment and stage in time. But I notice when I started to really think about the roles that I play and what happens when those roles shift, change, or completely fall away, I felt my body tense up in my ears. My shoulders start to go up around my ears. So I think it's still a really important question for us to contemplate. And I find that those places where we feel most stuck often come with an unconscious shift in identity, a place in our lives where we're between roles, where we're between identities even, and we don't know how to let go of the other one. We're not clear about the next one, so we get stuck in this spinny place. And the journal can become a page or a place for healing and helping us move forward. Or conversely, it can keep us in that mixer where we're creaming the eggs and the sugar for way too long. You know what I mean? Those of you that love to bake. But when we learn a better way to let go of all the things that we've done, we start to ask, who am I? So that's what today's experience is all about, is really answering this question for women 55 and over. And it's certainly not a question that is limited to women. It is any gender experiences this crisis of identity multiple times. But in my work, I feel a sense of urgency in women 55 and over to answer this question, to have some certainty. And I think in my own pre-journaling practice, I saw some glimpses of why that is. So I'm going to change my camera over here, make sure I've got my notes so I don't forget what I'm going. I think I'm going to play here with some oil pastels today. I really love how creamy they are. Get my camera set up a little bit differently. Bear with me for just 1 minute. And so for this creative reflection pages process, which I'm really just starting to share, it's been something that I have done personally for about the last decade. This is my approach to morning pages. It's my approach to traditional journal prompts. And I'm one of those people that I buy all those beautiful journals full of prompts. I create lots of prompts, and I'm noticing that I'm longing for something deeper, something that I can do in 15 minutes or less, but also something that invites action, that invites change and transformation, as opposed to getting caught in self analysis. So I've got some oil pastels here. I've got just one of my favorite writing pens at the moment, which changes almost daily. I am truly a pen junkie. And the question, the prompt that I'm starting with, so let me see if I can go back here in my journal quickly. And of course, it's going to be in a different part of my journal. So this is my teaching work journal. You can see these are some of my own creative reflection pages process. They're pretty simple, not a lot of words here. And I was looking for where I drew out there it is. I knew it was in here somewhere. So in my first video, I went into this in more detail. The video is titled something like Why Morning Pages Didn't Work for Me and What I Do Instead. This is what I do instead. I always start with a prompt, and throughout this year, I'm going to be sharing these prompts with you. And these prompts are mostly targeting women 55 and over because it's the audience that I'm in and that I'm passionate about supporting, but there's always something for everyone here. So if you're here, welcome. Glad to have you. Be sure and hit that subscribe button as well as the like button so you get notified when I release new content. Plus, we will be sharing out some of our prompts in advance and some other fun bonuses for our subscribers as well. This is such a simple process of starting with a prompt. As soon as you start with a prompt, you get over the fear of the blank page really fast. Then we're going to reflect. Sometimes you might reflect first in writing. Sometimes that reflection might be visual, and I'm going to show you that difference today. And then after this writing and creating, there needs to be a place of integration. And integration is where that healing happens. And so today I'm actually going to give you a few different prompts to lead down to the creative to see if we can, again, get below the surface of that question of who am I, to really understand how our loss of identity really impacts us at every fiber of our being. And so my question for today is, who am I now? And you don't need to be able to read that. I know I'm writing really small. Who am I now beyond my roles? And if you've never thought of yourself in the light of the roles that you play, it might be necessary to simply spend a moment and think about, well, what are the roles that I play? And what the heck does Minette mean when she says the roles I play? So mother, sister, daughter, wife, auntie, cousin, lover, partner, spouse, BFF, career is a role identity. I'm a therapist, I'm a librarian, I'm a lawyer. And what happens throughout our life is we over identify with the role until the role becomes what we think of as our true self. So when that role changes, for example, when you retire from a multi-decade career, all of a sudden that identity disappears with the role, and you start to really question, well, who am I and what value am I offering if I'm not in that role? Or if you have been a stay-at-home mom and then all of a sudden the kids are gone and you find yourself being an empty nester and mom was your core role and core identity, the loss of that role can send us into a pit of despair. We're grieving and celebrating our kids going off to start their own lives, grieving for ourselves, celebrating for them. And again, wondering, what do I do now? What's next for me? Other people step in to these huge major transitions with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. Oh, I'm finally going to. And yet we keep getting pulled and trapped by this. Yes, I can do that, but what about this other identity over here? So it's not until we fully understand that our identity is beyond the roles we play that we can move on. So the first question of who am I now beyond my roles is to ask yourself, when I loosen my grip on my roles, my body feels. We're going to go deep really fast here, my friends. When I loosen my grip on my roles, my body feels. And when I first read that, the thing that I heard was that I feel lost, I feel fragmented. So again, we're using words and imagery here to get to the core of the matter, to get there fast, and to decide what's next from this one little moment. We're not looking to change our whole lives. We're looking to get clarity on who am I now beyond my roles. And I felt in my body that this very visceral kind of sense of this fragmented amoeba with lots of arms, and it's kind of, loose, and there's no shape to it. Like I can't get my arms around it. The word I'm hearing in my head is literally, it feels a little pokey, right? It feels a little pokey, and yet there's also kind of this vacuum. You can see why I love oil pastels. They're so simple and easy to create, right? And there's kind of like this, there's a hole. There's a hole in my soul. There's a hole in my art. And I feel this, even though, as I said at the beginning, I think I'm pretty clear about my roles, but clearly this is how it feels. I remember when I've been in these huge shifts where I went from one career to the next, when I became an empty nester, when I moved cross country for the first time, lived in Texas my whole life, and then moved to California in my early 20s to get my doctorate at Stanford University. And there was this huge identity crisis that I wasn't expecting when all of a sudden I was thousands of miles away from my family and my home of origin. I felt lost. It was another one of those moments where I felt like I don't know who I am in this new context, this new place. So anything can spark this. But what's most important here for healing and transformation is to name the feeling, to simply name the feeling. And then the second part of this prompt is I know how I'm feeling. And especially for women who are caregivers, this one really hits us at the core. Or those of you that had very successful professional careers as well, this can really hit you at the depth of your being and your value and your sense of self-worth. So if I'm not needed, I fear I will. And all these prompts will be in the description of this video. You don't need to read my handwriting here tiny on your screen. If I'm not needed, I fear I will disappear, was the word that came to my mind. I fear I will disappear. I will vanish. I hear from women, especially women who are recently retired, that they feel invisible. If I'm not needed, I fear I will disappear. I'll vanish. I'll become invisible. I won't feel worthy. I won't understand how to make a contribution. Like, what good am I? Might be a question. It popped into my head. Maybe it'd pop into your head. If I'm not needed, then who the F am I? So if you're opposed to cuss words, this may not be the video series for you because I like a good F-bomb. So if I'm not needed, who the fuck am I? And this is our opportunity for transformation right here, noticing and naming what my fear is gives me that opportunity to go, but I want to be the queen of my own story. I say that. It's the name of my channel. But if I feel invisible, how do I make that happen, right? So you can see that inside our bodies, we're feeling all these contradictions. And with a few sketches and a few words, we can really tap in and understand what's the core. So what do I want to reclaim? Knowing that beyond my roles, all of a sudden I feel lost, fragmented, maybe a little pokey. There's a vacuum, and all of those feelings means that I fear I'm going to disappear, I'm going to vanish, I'm going to be invisible. No one is going to care about me, right? I won't be making a contribution. So we feel, again, this loss. And the sense of feeling invisible is so common and so normal, especially for people just in those first few years after retirement. And then I want to ask the most important question, what I want to reclaim, I can't spell today, what I want to reclaim for myself. Gold star for you if you can read that. What I want to reclaim for myself is, or what I want to reclaim for me is, I want to reclaim the opposite of these. I want to reclaim worthiness, visibility, intrinsic self-worth. I want to make that shift from thinking that my worthiness and my value comes from my roles back to the truth of I am inherently worthy because I exist. And this is a hard one to unravel and reweave the thread of that story. But what I want to reclaim for myself is worthiness, visibility. I want to reclaim desire, dreams, contribution, value, right? There's so many things that will help me become the queen of my own story, regardless of the role I'm playing. So you can see in this one simple page, I uncovered a feeling, right? A fear, and what I want instead in this simple little short progress. But we're not done yet. Bear with me. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go a little deeper into the visual part of this, because what I've discovered about the creative reflection pages process is that the more that we go into the visual part of this process, the more we get out of that overthinking head, back into our feeling, intuitive, unconscious bodies where truth lives, where our intrinsic value and worth live. And what I'm going to invite you to do here with me is to draw two simple silhouettes, stick figures actually. And one is your role self and one is your true self, right? So if I think about my role self, I have been an entrepreneur and an academic pretty much on and off my whole life. I've loved books and learning. I loved being, if I had to name oof, that role self, she's the achiever, right? She's the achiever. But if I come over here and I draw my true self, I love stick figures for this kind of work, fast and easy. My true self, right? Or even my soul self, outside of needing to achieve to prove that I'm worthy, my true self, I'm feeling this in my heart space, right? My true self is love. My true self is valued because I am. I am, right? I am worthy. There's a reason why affirmations are so popular, but we have to feel those in our body, right? My true self is love, knows that I am valued simply because I am. And if I think about how can I create a bridge between my role self and my true self so I can step out of whatever role that is, achiever, mom, daughter, wife, entrepreneur, right? Biz owner for me. Like there's so many artists. I can list these roles that I played, but the core of my true self, look how simple it is. And so the bridge for me between these two is vision. And what I mean by vision here is maybe a better word for that is insight, right? Is insight. Is the bridge between that role self and that true self. When I pause in this creative reflection pages process to really get that my role self and my true self are separate, that my true self is the beauty beneath all the roles I played, that I don't have to keep doing, but I can be valued for my being, that flows from insight and reflection. So simple processes here to celebrate the truth we're being. So the truth underneath all these roles is that I am valuable and worthy simply because I am. And one thing I can do this week is our final wrap up piece of this process to move from rumination into action, right? The one simple thing I can do for me personally to recognize my value is to make time for play, to make time for art, to make time for something that celebrates who I am, not what I'm doing, but who I'm being. So that, my loves, is a little bit about how do we go from who am I now beyond my roles? How do we use the creative reflection pages process to really connect more deeply with how we're being, to get to the truth fast, and to see where we can make simple, small changes that lead to big wins, like knowing that I am worthy. Let me know what you think. Thank you for being here. So appreciate all of you. Come back over here to Just Me Talking. Again, I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and you can find out more about me on my website at MinetteRiordan.com, or check out some of my other videos here on YouTube. I think there's well over 300 videos at this point of me sharing my personal creative practice in the hope that it will inspire you to get out of that ruminating and back into being and seeing your beauty, your worthiness, and becoming the queen of your own story. Thanks for being here.